The moment I was wheeled out of delivery, James was already transferring our newborn son into the arms of Ella, the fading heiress, her body ravaged by cancer, whose sole remaining desire was to see her daughter Onyx become a mother. If the child carried Onyx's name on the birth certificate, Logan's fortune would be hers. I shook my head, frantic, disbelieving, but James called me selfish. Ella paid for your education, he reminded me, voice cold as winter glass. Everything you are, you owe to her. Can you really let her die with that regret hanging over her? 3 days later, Onyx posted a photograph. There they were, Knox holding little Oliver, Onyx leaning into him, her head nearly upon his shoulder, a perfect, curated image of new parenthood. The caption read, glowing with false light, thankful for heaven's gift, fulfilling my father's last wish. Heaven's gift. My son. Born of my body, now blessing another woman's narrative. The C-section scar burned, a searing line of fire across my abdomen, as I stumbled toward Logan's room, and there was James, not by my side, but beside Onyx, feeding her slices of fruit with a tenderness he'd never shown me. The child will have a better life with her, he said, not meeting my eyes. You're his mother, be sensible. Something in me broke then, not loudly but quietly, like ice over deep water. I went back to my room, took the divorce papers from the drawer, and handed them to him without a word. He stared, then clutched our son tighter. Come back, he pleaded, voice cracking, we can fix this. But my eyes were already fixed on the phone screen, glowing harshly in the dimness. Onyx's post, their happy family, his arm around her, their gazes soft upon the child, my child, who now belonged to a story I had no part in. The gift was mine. The wish was theirs. And in the silence of that sterile room, only the pain reminded me that any of it was really. Raised my hand, and gently placed it on my abdomen, curling up completely, beads of sweat forming on my forehead. But the pain in my heart far surpassed the physical wound. The day the child was born, Knox told me Ella had terminal cancer, and not long to live, and she wanted to see her only daughter have a child. As long as Onyx had a child under her name, Logan would be willing to give that child an inheritance, even if the child wasn't Onyx's biological child. I couldn't understand what these wealthy people were thinking. I only needed this was my child, and no one could take him away. But Knox seemed completely deluded, determined to hand the child over to Onyx. Having just had a C-section, I was too weak, and could only watch helplessly as he took the child away. With trembling fingers, I gently swiped across the photo. Zooming in, Knox's fingers gently supported the bottom of Olive, and Onyx's hand rested on the back of his. They really did look like a harmonious family of three. My gaze was fixed on the tiny, tightly swallowed figure, my son just 3 days old. He was handed by his own father to another woman. It had been 3 days since the child was taken, yet there was no sign of him being returned. Knox hadn't even visited the hospital again. I couldn't wait any longer, even though my body hadn't fully recovered. I tore off the Knox, stumbled, and ran out of the hospital. Ella was considered Knox's benefactor. She had supported him throughout his graduate studies. After graduation, he went to work at Blake and was highly valued. Plus, he often brought me to visit Mr. and Mrs. Sterling, so I knew where Logan lived. The cab driver saw I was still wearing a hospital gown and politely asked if I needed help. I waved him off, simply enduring the discomfort in my abdomen, telling him I was fine soon. We arrived at Logan's entrance. The door was opened by Logan's nanny, who paused in surprise when she saw my appearance. I abruptly pushed the nanny aside and rushed inside. Originally, I thought I would only see Onyx, but I didn't expect Knox to be there, too. He was sitting on the sofa holding a cherry, carefully offering it to Onyx, who was lounging on the other end of the sofa. Onyx was wearing pajamas, a smile on her face, and she slightly opened her mouth, taking the cherry. The scene was so intimate, as if they were the married couple. Yet I had been calling Knox these past few days, trying to get him to bring the child back. He kept saying he was busy, needing to handle things at the office with no time. So this was what he meant by no time. When Knox saw me, he immediately stood up and rushed to my side, demanding, Mason, why are you out here when you should be resting at the hospital? Onyx's reaction was slower than Knox's. She didn't even immediately put down the cherry pit, merely sitting up slightly. She looked up at me, her beautiful eyes showing no surprise, only a condescending scrutiny. Suddenly, the sound of a baby crying came from the stroller nearby. I reacted instantly, instinctively wanting to rush over, but Knox blocked me. Onyx stood up, walked to the stroller, took my child out and softly comforted him. My mind went blank. My eyes seemed only capable of seeing Onyx holding my child. Since his birth I hadn't even held him. I struggled, reaching out, trying to break free from Knox's hold. Give me back my child. Onyx, while comforting the child, looked at me and said with faint concern, Harper, you just gave birth. Your health is important. How can you run around like this? What if your incision reopens? Her voice was soft, feigning worry, but her gaze suddenly swept across my face, carrying the disdain of wealthy people. Knox reached out to grab my arm, his tone stern and agitated. Mason, what are you doing? Ella is still resting upstairs. What kind of scene are you making yelling like this? Get back to the hospital now. I violently slapped his hand away, screaming with all my might, Knox. This is the child I carried for 10 months. Are you really going to snatch him from me and give him to another woman? Knox seized my flailing arm, forcibly dragging me away from Onyx, his movements rough, completely disregarding my abdominal incision. Can you stop being so selfish? You know, Alice saved my life. Making her happy is the most important thing right now. Besides, the child will have a better life with Onyx. After he finished speaking, he abruptly let go my C-section incision hand, fully healed, and suddenly my vision blurred. The pain made it hard to breathe and my body uncontrollably slumped downwards. Knox seemed startled by my pale face. He quickly stepped forward, gently supported me, and sighed helplessly. Oliver, you're the child's mother. You don't want people saying his mother is just an insurance agent, do you? I looked up, meeting Knox's eyes, a sense of disbelief washing over me. Knox and I were both Richard. What was harder than getting into college was finding the money to attend that year. Knox and I both received acceptance letters, but to ensure he could study without worry, I gave up Mykins to attend university, and went to a big city to sell insurance to earn his tuition. If I hadn't earned that tuition money from selling insurance to send him to college, he would never have met Ella. Now that he had a more powerful backer, he actually said I was just an insurance agent. Just then, Onyx, who had been watching coldly, spoke up. Harper, I know you're sad and reluctant, but she paused, then turned her gaze to Knox beside me with a natural intimacy. Tiffany is also doing this for the child's good. The child will only have a future with me. What Logan can give him, you can never provide. After Onyx finished speaking, she lowered her head to look at the infant in her arms, her fingertips gently caressing his cheek. Her posture suggested as if she were the mother who had given everything to this life. I roared, if you want a child, have your own. Why steal mine? Onyx, hearing my words, chuckled as if she'd heard a joke, then added with a sense of entitlement, I have a congenital issue and can't carry a child, and I don't want to go through that hardship. Tiffany is beautiful and intelligent, so the child is bound to turn out well. A sense of upper-class arrogance permeated Onyx's very being, as if everything she did was her inherent right. Even if she snatched my child, I shouldn't resist, but for some reason, I felt things weren't as simple as Onyx made them out to be. If she just wanted a child, there were plenty in orphanages. Why did it have to be my child? But I couldn't calm down to think. Now I just looked up at Knox and asked, is that what you think too? Knox didn't look at me. He just turned away, his voice resolute. The child will have a better future at Logan. Since you're his biological mother, you should be more sensible. Sensible? My entire body trembled. I was in terrible pain. I spoke hoarsely. Knox, whose future did you trade my child for? Knox seemed to be caught off guard, a flicker of shame crossing his face, but he quickly reverted to his previous cold demeanor. Mason, don't say such unpleasant things. The child will receive the best education and have the best start with Onyx. It's all for his own good. Do you really want Toady him to your side to suffer poverty and hardship? Watching Knox like this, tears slowly fell from my eyes. He was speaking grandly now, but in reality, it was all for his own future. Climbing up Logan's high branch was enough to guarantee him a life of luxury and prosperity. I raised my hand and heavily dug my nails into my palms, forcing myself to calm down, stating word by word, I am taking my child today. Knox grabbed my hand, pulling me directly towards the door, but he underestimated a mother's determination to take her child. I immediately broke free from his grasp and rushed to the coffee table, snatching the kitchen knife from the fruit plate, pointing the sharp blade at Knox. Knox, give me back my child. Monica showed some reaction only when she saw me wield the knife, but she was merely slightly startled. Taking a few steps back while holding the child, Knox's face changed. He reached out, trying to calm me. Oliver, don't be so impulsive. Put down the knife and let's talk properly. I scoffed, not responding to him, just charging towards him, swinging the knife. However, my strength was minimal, and I had little power while still recovering. Knox easily took the knife from me. In the process of him disarming me, the knife cut my arm. The pain instantly brought me some clarity. I looked at Knox. Suddenly I remembered that many years ago my first child was also lost because of him. That was 2 years ago. Not long after remarried, I became pregnant. Knox twirled me around excitedly, saying he was going to be a father. We happily planned our future, eagerly anticipating the arrival of this child until that phone call came. Knox only glanced at the screen and his face instantly changed. He immediately took his phone and retreated to the balcony, pulling the glass door shut. I vaguely heard him lower his voice, responding with some anxiety, Onyx, don't cry, don't cry. Tell me slowly, what car accident? At which hospital? Okay, I'll be right there, wait for me. Knox hung up the phone and rushed back to the bedroom, grabbing his coat and putting it on. With astonishing speed, my heart tightened. I propped myself up, asking, "It's so late. What happened?" Knox spoke quickly, not even looking at me, his eyes filled with urgency and panic. "Onyx was in a car accident. I have to go immediately. She's scared. Alone." Onyx was 6 years younger than us. For years, I had always treated her like a younger sister. I thought Knox felt the same way, so I didn't pay it much mind. Not long after Knox left, it started raining heavily outside. I was half asleep when I received Knox's call. "Oliver, come to the hospital now. It's not convenient for me to take care of a girl like her tomorrow. I'll find a nurse for her." As soon as Knox finished speaking, lightning flashed outside. I glanced at the time. It was 3 in the morning. I even wondered if I wasn't fully awake or if I had gotten up too quickly and misheard him. "Knox, I'm due any day." "No, it's 3 in the morning, and it's pouring rain. You want me to go take care of another woman?" Knox didn't heed my words, only giving a command. "I've already called a cab for you. You're still a ways from your due date. It'll be fine." I lay stiffly in bed, my hand instinctively caressing my slightly swollen abdomen, a sense of unease in my heart. I wasn't an idiot, of course. I wouldn't go out in this weather. It was only later, when I felt thirsty and wanted to go downstairs for a glass of water, that I accidentally stepped in water Knox had spilled earlier in his haste. I slipped and fell, hitting my abdomen on the corner of a table. I immediately screamed in pain, collapsing to the floor, gasping for breath and agony. Fortunately, my phone was beside me. I struggled to suppress the pain, got up and picked up my phone to call Knox, but call after call, it was always busy. The messages I sent him went unanswered. Finally, with my last ounce of strength, my fingers trembling, I dialed 911. After that, I lost consciousness. Only when I woke up, I smelled a pungent disinfectant under the hospital room's harsh lights. I saw Knox. He had finally arrived. His hair was a mess, his clothes wrinkled, and his face showed fatigue and a hint of guilt he couldn't quite conceal. Seeing I was awake, Knox quickly got up, came to my bedside and grabbed my hand. "Oliver, how are you? Are you uncomfortable anywhere?" I looked at him, my lips moving, and with all my strength, I whispered, "The baby." Knox held my hand. His eyes reddened, and with trembling lips, he said, "The baby. There will be other babies." Silence filled the hospital room. I looked at my flat abdomen, unable to accept that this child had just left me. Knox sat by the bed, head down, hands buried in his hair, his shoulders slightly shaking. I closed my eyes, unable to accept the truth. After a long while, he spoke in a hoarse voice. "Onyx was also badly injured, multiple fractures all over her body and a concussion. She was terrified at the time, crying constantly, clinging to me, not letting me leave. I didn't expect you would at that time." I felt utterly disheartened. Dane D considered divorcing him, but Knox knelt and begged for my forgiveness multiple times, and even deleted all of Onyx's contact information in front of me, and he promised me he only saw Onyx as a sister and would never again neglect me because of her. I loved him too much. Then I softened and forgave him. Knox did keep his word for a while. For those 2 years, he didn't see Onyx again, dedicating himself completely to our family, appearing as the perfect husband in everyone's eyes, until 2 years later, Ella was diagnosed with cancer with an unknown prognosis. Ella had only one daughter, Onyx, and for her peace of mind, she had always wanted her to marry or have a child. It was also then that Knox suggested we have a child. At the time, I thought Knox wanted a child, but now looking back, he had planned this all along, using a child to trade for a future. My thoughts returned to the present. I had been dazedly brought back to the hospital room by Knox with so many people at Logan. They certainly wouldn't just stand by and watch me leave with the child, but I would not give up on bringing my child back. "Oliver, I'm doing this for the child, for our little family. Why can't you understand me?" Knox's expression was somewhat helpless, as if he were truly wronged and I was just an unreasonable shrew. I looked at him, my face expressionless. "Knox, let's get a divorce." Knox froze as if he'd heard some absurd joke. "Mason, are you crazy for such a minor thing?" "A minor thing?" And Knox, his eyes, this was actually a minor thing. I lay in the hospital bed, the wound on my arm already treated by the nurse. Although my body wasn't hurting much anymore, my heart ached intensely. I stared at the ceiling, my voice calm. "Knox, you gave my newborn child to another woman. That's not a minor thing." Knox rushed impatiently to my side. "Mason, can you stop being so selfish? Ella is kind to may just want to repay her, and the child will have a better life with Onyx. What's wrong with that?" I slowly turned my head and looked at him. Knox hadn't put any effort into this child. I was the one who carried him for 10 months. I was the one who suffered from premature labor, yet now wanted to easily take the child away like this. Impossible, I retorted angrily. "Knox, tell me honestly, is this truly for the child or for yourself to climb Logan's influential ladder?" Knox's expression faltered for a moment, as if I had exposed him, but he quickly regained his self-righteous demeanor. What kind of talk is that? Of course it's for the child. Can you give the child what Logan can? Private schools, overseas education, connections. Do you have any of that? Besides, the child is just temporarily registered under Onyx's name legally. He's still our son. Once Ella passes and the inheritance is secured, we'll take the child back immediately. Then we'll be wealthy, no longer cramped in Eva. And the child will receive the best education. This is all for our family. Why don't you understand my good intentions? I closed my eyes, not wanting to see his hypocritical face any more. The Knox I once knew wasn't like this in college. He would study late into the night at the library while I economized and sent him living expenses from outside. Back then, he said that once he made something of himself, he would surely give me a good life. Now he had made something of himself, but he wanted to give our child away to someone else. I opened my eyes. My voice called, "You can go tomorrow. I'll have a lawyer deliver the divorce papers to you." Knox's face changed. "Mason, don't push it. The child is still at Logan. Do you think you can take him if we divorce?" Those words cut into my heart like a knife. Yes, Logan was prominent in the capital city. How could I compete with them? But I had to find a way. That was my child, the one I carried for 10 months. Woe almost died on the operating table. I pointed to the door, my voice trembling, yet firm. "Get out." Knox glared at me, then ultimately slammed the door shut as he left the hospital room. Finally fell silent. I pulled out my phone and dialed a number he hadn't called in a long time. "Hello, is this Attorney Lynn? This is Masoni. Need your help." 3 days later, I was discharged from the hospital. During these 3 days, Knox didn't come to the hospital again. He only sent a few texts saying the child was doing well at Logan and telling me to stop making trouble. Onyx even sent me a photo of the child telling me the baby was sleeping soundly. I turned off my phone screen, looked at the woman across the coffee table, suppressed my emotions and fully recounted the incident to her. Attorney Lynn listened, then angrily slapped the table. "This is absolutely preposterous. A newborn child forcibly taken by his father and given to someone else. The court will not tolerate such behavior." Attorney Lynn was a client I met when I was selling insurance. She specialized in divorce and custody cases, so I felt confident in trusting this matter to her. I bit my lip, voicing my biggest concern, "But I don't have a job right now and my financial situation isn't as good as Knox's." Attorney Lynn patted my hand. "Don't worry. A mother has a natural advantage in newborn custody. Moreover, the other party wants to give the child to a third party for upbringing. We're sure to win this case." After leaving the hospital, I didn't go home. Instead, I went directly to Attorney Lynn's office to sign the authorization. Then I went to Logan again. The last time I returned from Logan, I felt something was very wrong. Even if I was overthinking, I had to go. See, this time, Onyx opened the door for me, but Knox wasn't there. Onyx blocked the doorway, showing no intention of letting me in. Her gaze swept over my pale face and her tone carried faint concern. "Harper, why are you here again? Didn't the doctor tell you to rest properly?" I ignored her, looking past her shoulder into, "Oh, the house. I'm here to see my son." Onyx's face suddenly changed upon hearing this, and her eyes instinctively darted upstairs for a moment, but quickly returned to normal. She moved further inside, blocking the way more thoroughly. "The baby just fell asleep. A child's sleep is important and shouldn't be disturbed. You should go back first when he wakes up. I'll have the nanny record a video for you." But the more Onyx tried to stop me now, the more worried I became. "Move." I don't know where I found the strength, but I suddenly pushed her away. Onyx was caught off guard, stumbling back a few steps and crying out, "Mason, what are you doing?" Pushing Onyx aside, I stumbled instinctively towards the direction on the second floor that Onyx had glanced at. Onyx tried to stop me, but I ran quickly, rushing directly to the tightly closed room door and pushing it open. Forceful life moment it opened. I was somewhat taken aback. The thick curtains in the room were tightly drawn with only a few large white candles lit, making it somewhat eerie. That air was also filled with the heavy scent of traditional Chinese medicine. The severely ill Ella lay in bed, her face terrifyingly pale, and my child, only a few days old and who should have been soundly sleeping in a warm Oliver, was now held tightly in Onyx's mother's arms. The child's tiny face was beet red, emitting faint cries, but his small mouth was forcibly wide open. She was about to pour a bowl of unknown liquid into the child's forcibly open mouth. I felt as if I'd been struck by lightning. All the blood in my body instantly froze. "No!" I screamed, rushing forward, snatching the bowl from Onyx's mother's hands and smashing it violently onto the floor. The bowl shattered, and the liquid splashed everywhere, emitting a pungent odor. The child finally found release, his teeny mouth opening and closing as he gasped for air, his cries gradually growing louder. Watching the child suffering in my arms, my heart twisted as if pierced by a knife. "How could you be so cruel? He's just a baby." I glared at Onyx and her mother, My eyes filled with anger and resentment. It was then that I realized they believed in some dark superstition. Sand wanted to use my child for a ritual toward awful fortune. Onyx's face was pale, her eyes unfocused, as if she wanted to explain something but couldn't bring herself to speak. Onyx's mother, however, was completely indifferent, as if everything that just happened had nothing to do with her. I held the child tightly, afraid he would suffer even the slightest harm. Everyone in the room froze, stunned by the sudden turn of events, but I quickly pulled out my phone and recorded everything before me. Then, before they could react, I rushed out. Alexander reacted, shouting at Onyx, "Onyx, stop her!" A pampered lady like Onyx certainly couldn't run as fast as I could, but as I rushed down the stairs, I ran right into Knox, who had just returned. When Knox saw me rushing down with the child, his face drastically changed and he reached out to stop me. "Mason, what are you doing now?" Onyx also shrieked, "Stop her, she's taking the child." I abruptly raised my phone screen, practically shoving the shocking photos I had just taken in front of his eyes, staring intently at Knox. My voice called, "Knox, look at what they were trying to do to your son." Knox froze when he saw my phone screen. When he saw the video clearly, his face instantly drained of all color, his lips trembled and his expression was terrified. "No, impossible," he instinctively retorted, but his voice lacked conviction. "Impossible." Holding the child, I slowly approached him, screaming with all my might, "Your son was almost killed by them, force-fed those things, and you tell me this is for his good? Knox, you're an animal, trading your own son's life for a life of luxury and prosperity." I pushed past Knox, who was blocking the doorway, and rushed out of Logan holding theme child. Heedless of everything behind me, there was a commotion, but I seemed not to hear it. Charging forward with the child in my arms to the police station. My voice was in barely recognizable tremor. On the street, I hailed a cab. The driver saw my pale face and crying infant in my arms, didn't ask a single question, and sped away. The little one in my arms was probably tired from crying. He finally quieted down, his tiny body nestled against me, offering some warmth. I lowered my head, gently nestling his cool little face, and couldn't help but cry, large tears falling onto his wrinkled forehead. This little life whom I had brought into the world by risking half my own. I had almost lost him forever. Attorney Lynn acted faster than I expected because there was a complete chain of evidence. The case was processed quickly. Coupled with Logan's significant influence in the public eye, the media widely reported on it. Logan clearly hadn't anticipated that I would expose them. They tried to bribe me with money, sending messages through intermediaries, hinting that if I withdrew the lawsuit, everything could be negotiated, but I ignored them. When Knox came to find me, he already had white hairs, an unkempt beard, and had lost a lot of weight. When he saw me, he immediately fell to his knees. "Oliver, I know I was wrong. Italy didn't know they would treat the child like that. Onyx tricked me. She said it was just for the child to stay with Ella for a few days to absorb some good fortune. How is the child? Is he okay? Please let me see him, Michelle. After all these years, are you really going to be so heartless? A child can't be without his father." I looked at Knox, the man I had once deeply loved, but now, no matter how much he begged, I couldn't forgive him. I raised my hand and slapped him hard, pointing at him and scolding, "Knox, doesn't your conscience bother you saying that now, if it weren't for me, the child might have been tortured to death 88 by them?" Knox pleaded bitterly, "Michelle, I truly know I was wrong. Logan promised a large sum of money, enough for us and the child to live comfortably for the rest of our lives. Please, just forgive me." Hearing Knox's words, I felt even more nauseated. Devon, now he hadn't offered a single sincere apology. Every word was a justification. Even now he still wanted Logan's money. Knox was never concerned about what the child was almost forced, nor about my injuries. He only cared about himself. I looked down at him, saying each word distinctly, "Knox, every single word you're saying right now makes mutterly disgusted Oliver." His voice was in barely recognizable tremor. He reached out to touch me, but I stepped back. "Onyx really did trick me. Truly didn't know they would force-feed the child those things. That's my Sony used to be very soft-hearted, unable to bear seeing Knox sad, but now I only felt irony. Your son." I looked at the child sleeping soundly in the crib, completely drawn the line between myself and Knox. "Knox, the moment you personally took him from me and used him to trade for your future, he stopped being your son. You don't deserve to be his father." Knox abruptly looked up at my words, his face covered in tears, but a hint of desperation flashed in his eyes. "Oliver, how can you think that of me?" "Yes, I wanted to repay Ella's kindness, but I also wanted what was best for our child. With Onyx, he would be born on a mountaintop that others could never reach in a lifetime." The more Knox spoke, the more agitated he became, as if everything he did was perfectly justified. "I love you, Oliver. Everything I did was for our family, for you and the child to have a good life in the future. Why don't you understand?" Even now was still blaming me for not understanding him. I scoffed, "Knox, your so-called good life means using my son as a tool for someone else to use the child for a ritual to ward off ill fortune. You call that love? You call that good for the child? You call that for our family? I watched his face instantly drain of color, pressing closer with each step. You've only ever loved yourself. Knox swayed, his body trembling as he collapsed to the floor, unable to utter another word of defense, only mumbling, You're talking nonsense. I did it all for this family. I had no time to listen to him. But just then my phone rang. He glanced down. It was Attorney Lynn calling. As soon as I answered, her anxious voice came through. Mason. The police just searched Logan's old residence and found in the basement. My heart sank abruptly, an ominous premonition filling me. What about the basement? On the other end of the line, Attorney Lynn's voice paused, then resumed with anger. The police found 3 children's blood-stained clothes in Logan's basement. The children are now missing. My mind went blank. So my son wasn't the first. So my child almost left me forever. Animals, they're all animals. I roared uncontrollably, the sheer terror making my entire body tremble, tears instantly blurring my vision. Knox, who was slumped on the floor, clearly heard fragments of the phone conversation. He abruptly looked up at me, then at the child in the crib. His eyes filled with terror. Knox was incoherent. No, impossible. Onyx, she was just. I looked down at him, feeling a wave of coldness and disgust at the thought that he was still defending Onyx. Knox, this is the Logan you wanted to repay. This is the Onyx you adored. You almost personally killed our child. Knox's eyes were bloodshot. He looked at me crying, Oliver, I really was wrong. He finally knew he had been wrong, but it was already useless. My voice was terrifyingly calm. Knox, you'd better pray you have absolutely nothing to do with these matters. Otherwise, none of you will escape. Onyx and her mother were both arrested. Ella passed away the night she heard the news. Whether from her illness or from sheer anger was unknown. Blake was instantly left leaderless. The enormous internal deficits and illegal financing issues could no longer be concealed and were immediately exposed. And Knox, who Ella had practically raised as a son, naturally became the target of public scorn. The police followed Theclus and uncovered a series of problems at the office, with the chain of evidence firmly pointing to Knox. After her initial breakdown and denial, Onyx, to protect herself, shrieked in the interrogation room, pointing fingers. It was all Knox's idea. He said poor people's children were worthless and no one would care if they went missing. He was the mastermind. Knox became the perfect scapegoat, but I believed he was not innocent either. Soon the group declared bankruptcy. Onyx and her mother were sentenced to death. Knox received life imprisonment. Knox appealed repeatedly, but it was useless. The verdicts remained consistently the same. During this time, he kept begging me to see him again, but I refused every time. Until the dust settled, I stood before the prison's glass window holding my 6-month-old son, looking at Knox, who was wearing a gray-blue prison uniform, and had a shaved head. Knox used to be so vibrant and confident, but now only despair remained, making him look like a middle-aged man in his 40s or 50s. He practically lunged at the glass, his eyes fixed on the child in my arms, and a smile appeared on his face. The child curiously looked at the stranger behind the glass, but then suddenly seemed a little scared, his small mouth pursing as he snuggled further into my arms. Oliver, son. Knox's voice was hoarse, his fingers trembling as they pressed against the cold glass, pleading bitterly, I was wrong. I was truly wrong. I was completely deluded. It's all that despicable Onyx. She tricked me. She's the one who ruined me and brought me to this. Oliver, forgive me. Just wait for me to get out. We'll still be a family. A family. I calmly cut off his hysterics. Knox, from the moment you took my son, we stopped being a family. Knox heard my words and his face filled with despair. I looked at the men I had once deeply loved and slowly said, I'm not here to listen to your repentance today. I gently rocked my son in my arms. The child, sensing his mother, looked around curiously with his dark, expressive eyes. I just want you to see this child you nearly destroyed with your own hands. He's doing very well now. He doesn't need your worthless fatherly love. He has me. And that's enough. Knox's body trembled violently as if he wanted to say something, but in the end, he didn't. As for forgiveness, I paused, my gaze calmly meeting his collapsing gaze, a faint smile even touching my lips. Knox, I forgive you. Knox jolted, his eyes instantly filled with disbelief mixed with a glimmer of hope as he looked at me. Really? He asked hoarsely, his voice tinged with pleading hope. I nodded, my tone calm, as if stating an unrelated fact. I forgive you not because your repentance is sincere, nor because you deserve forgiveness. He leaned in slightly closer to the microphone and spoke every word clearly and distinctly, but because from this moment on, you and everything about you will have absolutely nothing to do with me or my son ever again. You are dead to me. On the other side of the glass, the faint joy on Knox's face completely vanished. He collapsed heavily to the ground with a dull thud. I took one last look at Knox, who was huddled on the other side without a hint of lingering attachment, clutching my son in my arms. I turned and walked purposefully out of the visitation room without looking back. Stepping out of the prison, the heavy iron gate slowly closed behind me. Outside the gate, sunlight poured down on me, radiating warmth. I looked down. My son was looking up at me, his small face upturned, his bright black eyes reflecting the sunlight. He bared his toothless little mouth, making soft cooing sounds, and a chubby little hand reached out, trying to touch me. I held him closer, gently pressing my cheek against his soft, warm forehead, and whispered softly, "Don't be scared, my love, mommy's here." The child smiled up at me, holding my child. I walked forward with determined strides. The path of a new life lay before me, paved with light.